In this week's the news, National fights off claims immigrants are taking your jobs by making AI do it instead. Is a curriculum written by indoctrinated, ideologically driven right-wingers actually ineffective at teaching our tamariki? The answer will not shock you. The coalition agrees that they can all attack the rainbow community more than they are to keep the world's worst menage a trois in place. And National propose actually good law change that highlights that more ACT Party presidents have committed crimes they blame on trans people to justify the new bigoted laws they're passing. All that and more in this week's the news. Hello there, kia ora, and welcome to this week's the news. I'm Paul, and today's bulletin is made of 100% recycled words. Finance Minister Nicola Willis, seen here being shown again why her policies are terrible by people infinitely more qualified than she is, has had a busy week terrifying people. She started by announcing plans to cull almost 9,000 jobs, replace back office roles with AI, and try to model our public sector on the Finnish model, without the taxing wealth and putting in economic safety net bits, because that sounds too much like socialism. Willis wants to mimic her mentor Bill English and plans to cap the public service sector to 1% of the population, while ignoring that when English did this, hospital infrastructure was so poorly underfunded they ended up with black mould and failing sewage pipes, outdated IT systems that put personal data at risk, they drove away junior doctors to overseas posts, they saw a massive increase and spend on contractors, led to the degradation and justification to sell off thousands of state houses and other state assets, increased GST, increased child, youth and family caseloads exponentially, which saw an increase in child abuse reports, saw weakened border patrols, which led to the introduction of M. bovis to our herd stock, saw the degradation of dock infrastructure and the loss of scientific knowledge as environmental scientists left the country, led to an increased numbers of being forced through an underfunded judicial system, cut maintenance on key national infrastructure like rail tracks and bridges, and the closure of multiple police stations nationwide. Said Willis, of the proposed changes, some of these will happen through natural attrition, others will be because I show up in person with the goon squad and force the staff I don't like out of an airlock for saying things about me and the weird noises I make in Parliament. In other pre-budget announcements, National Housing Minister Chris Bishop, seen here showing the best method for cramming dweebs into their lockers in high school, announced changes to social housing. On one hand, 110,000 families will get increased support of almost $15 a month, or the price a kilo of mince has gone up over the last year, while 80,000 people and families will be worse off by $30 a week, or the full price of a kilo of mince now. Other changes include increased rent on social housing, eating into more of the small amount of money low-income earners have during the ongoing cost of living crisis, while reducing temporary additional support time limits on housing availability. Said Bishop, if money was limitless, we could do a lot of things, like build more houses like we promised and ignored, but it isn't. So we have to make tough choices, like whether or not Social Welfare Minister Louise Upston, who currently oversees a punitive social welfare system that has a record number of rejections of emergency housing applications under its belt because abusive situations apparently don't count for the need for help anymore, while actively demanding tougher accommodation supplement requirements, should tell people she's claiming an extra $52,000 a year on her $320,000 annual salary for an accommodation supplement on a house she already owns. If money was unlimited. Finance Minister Nicola Willis reiterated the limit on money, saying, well, good thing social housing recipients won the lottery and we don't need to worry about them now. New Zealand First Jenny Marcroft, seen here showing she clearly has no contact with the rainbow community because, sweetie, no amount of legal tender is ever going to pay for the crime that is that outfit. Introduced to the House this week her definition of sex bill, a bill legal experts, the Attorney General and the rainbow community have widely condemned. The bill is being supported by National and ACT, who before it was pulled from the tin called it an overstep, tall poppy syndrome and a solution to a problem that doesn't exist, but now call it a bunch of insulting things that degrade the rainbow community. Said the coalition's one openly gay MP, Todd Stevenson, the rainbow community has famously short memories and I'm sure they'll welcome us all back at Pride events around the country in no time. The Minister for Education, Erica Stanford, seen here reacting to a suggestion that perhaps education overhauls shouldn't be designed by known racist and right-wing astroturf groups with a vested financial interest in changing the systems against the advice of actual experts, this week introduced changes to the Teaching Council, which would remove elected teacher members and replace them with ministerial appointments and change the language of their role from recognising to giving effect to government decisions, essentially silencing any independent oversight for the profession. Said Stanford, my changes will reinforce the Teaching Council's role as a strong, accountable professional body with the whims of my office and the coalition's authoritarian tendencies at its core. Child safety. Child safety at its core. We interrupt the broadcast now with breaking news. As the cost of living skyrockets, inflation balloons, there are record numbers of people out of work and businesses failing, and New Zealanders fleeing the country, the Coalition has celebrated rebranding the Public Service Commission's new logo, which makes Te Reo Pākehā slightly bigger and given more prominence on their signs. The change has been celebrated by ACT, who wrote to the Public Service Minister Paul Goldsmith when racists demanded that they racism faster last month. Said Todd Stevenson, seen here realising how hypocritical it is to claim nurses were being ideological for suggesting they strengthened Te Tiriti obligations in their code of conduct while voting for Marcroft's anti-trans bill and pushing for English first signage. Act for win, whatever that means. I wonder if he's any good at English. Anyway, he went on to say ACT has always been clear that we do not support costly rebrands, but if it means that we can be both racist and blow these dog whistles hard, then we're all in, no matter the cost. The government has made moves to ensure family members who care for disabled family members are not classified officially as carers for Crown funding. Disability Issues Minister Louise Upston, seen here remembering she gets 52 grand top-ups on her salary because it's an entitlement she's entitled to, said this move was to make clear that family members and whānau have responsibilities in the first instance, and it gives us a handy excuse to not better recognise carers, but to make sure we don't have to deal with them going forward. There was no comment from the Minister for downplaying scary Te Reo Kupu, Todd Stevenson, on the use of the word whānau. The first national results on the updated English and Maths primary school curriculum have come in and show no discernible effect on children's achievement. Part of the board driving the new curriculum was known commentator on why anything Māori except her husband's last name is bad, Dr. Elizabeth Rata, the chair of the right-wing AstroTurf lobby group, the New Zealand Initiative, and Dr. Melissa Letts found the Free Speech Union to platform white supremacists Derby. They were tasked with creating a knowledge-rich, evidence-based curriculum where it seems the evidence shows leaving our curriculum for education up to right-wing figures who create public friction to push their ideological views is not helping our kids learn in more efficient ways. Winston Peters, seen here realising you now know his name is spelt with a Y instead of an I on his birth certificate, so he has self-identified himself with a name he prefers to be known by for decades, has announced plans in an Auckland event last weekend to roll back progressive social policies, to target the use of bathrooms, reinforce plans to define gender, cancel all co-governance arrangements of any sort, demand the departure of the country from the United Nations, World Health Organization, and World Economic Forum, demanding justice and accountability for COVID mandates despite two Royal Commission and inquiries on the topic already that didn't agree with his characterisations or demand executions, and a call for a referendum on the future of Māori seats in Parliament. And to force the buyback of BNZ, which other media reported like it's vaguely possible and totally normal while ignoring everything else he said that was crazy. National's Paul Goldsmith, seen here having heard Louise Upston use a Te Reo Māori word in public, has announced plans for the removal of good character assessments for sex offenders. The original policy was announced at the National Party's Central Conference by the Prime Minister, who said no sex offender was a good person of good character, while Goldsmith said, we want to send a clear message around sexual offending so that we don't want it, and there needs to be real consequences for that. There has been no comment from National's coalition partner David Seymour, seen here with the former ACT Party president who was found guilty of sexual assault, given name suppression to ensure his conviction didn't harm the party's election chance in 2023, and was given a generous good character discount for his work in surf lifesaving, a role which he used to target his victims. Doctors are reporting a sharp increase in no-shows for appointments connected to the increase in fuel costs, leading to concern the sudden cost increases will fuel a health crisis as people wait for medical help until it's too late. In remote and rural areas in particular, this is exacerbated as traditional journey costs have more than doubled. Said a government spokesperson on the issue, "Shh, we have to define sex in laws and make Māori words less scary. This isn't our concern right now." Radio New Zealand has been forced to announce early the departure of their chief executive, Paul Thompson, after commentary from Deputy Prime Minister David Seymour seemingly threatening their funding because he didn't like the way they did things in an apparent breach of the Cabinet Manual. The announcement was initially planned for later in the year, but the RNZ board released the information to staff early, saying there has been recent unhelpful external commentary about his future. Thompson has been CEO of RNZ for 13 years and plans to leave at the end of the year, and his replacement will be recruited after a new chair and board members made up of probably right-wing lobbyists and AstroTurf groups with clearly partisan agendas is appointed by Paul Goldsmith at the end of June. And finally, cross-party support for a new bill that's designed to increase And finally, cross-party support for a new bill that's designed to counter the increase in sexualized deepfakes has passed its first reading in Parliament this week. The bill will make creating, sharing, or selling sexually explicit deepfakes without consent a crime. The bill is a response to the increased access of AI deepfake technology that is primarily used to target women and found on websites like Twitter. The refusal to do anything about the ability of its AI to create these was identified as a major reason for Parliament choosing to leave the platform earlier this year. Free speech advocates have called this unfair and mean to everyday perverts on Twitter who only want everyone to be forced into the app to hear rumours from right-wing operatives treated like gospel, and men have meltdowns at the mention of Jacinda Ardern's name, and if that means making people see these objectionable materials at the same time, then that's a risk we ACTA New Zealand First voters are willing to force you to make. And that's it for this week's The News. Remember that while the Coalition MPs push through move-on orders under urgency to target homeless people for being inconveniently there, you can help them move on by voting on November 7, which you're not allowed to do this year if your enrolment details are not up to date by October 25. So head to vote.nz to make sure your details are up to date. Until next week, live long, prosper, be one with the force, and I'll catch you all next time. Hey, thanks for sticking around till the end of the video. While you're here, why not hit that like button or share the video or even subscribe to the channel. You could even become a paid YouTube member so you can see things released in advance, you get access to some exclusive content, and like all these awesome people, you get to have your name at the end of the credits as well.